"You still haven't touched me," said my alien wife as she jumped on me. Elias Ward had always considered himself a patient man. Years as a diplomat and a negotiator had trained him to remain calm under pressure, to measure every word, every gesture, and every reaction. Yet as he stood in the grand hall of the Interstellar Unity Council, a very different kind of pressure pressed down on him, one that came not from hostile aliens or tense negotiations, but from his own alien wife, Zyrakel. Zyrakel was not just any alien. She was a representative of the Krellith, a species known across the galaxy for their emotional intensity and directness. Where humans often took time to think, to feel, to pause, the Krellith acted immediately on emotion, interpreting hesitation as disrespect or disinterest. Elias had learned this the hard way. "You still haven't touched me," Zyrakel's voice rang out, clear and loud, echoing across the polished metal walls. She leapt onto him, her forearms wrapping around his shoulders in a way that made him stagger. Diplomats from 5 other species froze, their eyes widening in shock. Some looked amused, others looked scandalized. A few of the AI observers blinked in confusion, attempting to process the unexpected behavior. Elias' mind raced. He had expected questions about trade agreements, discussions about planetary alliances, perhaps even debates about interspecies laws. He had not expected a Krellith to jump on him in the middle of a council session. But this was Zyrakel. She did everything with dramatic flair. "Zyra," he said carefully, trying to keep his balance, "you know I respect your culture, but—" "Respect," she interrupted, her large eyes flashing with a mix of impatience and disbelief. "You call this respect. You do nothing, Elias. You wait and wait and wait. Do you not care?" The council chamber was silent except for the hum of distant engines and the soft footsteps of aides shuffling papers. Everyone was watching, waiting to see how the human would respond. And Elias, trained as he was, understood that his reaction in this moment could shape how the galaxy saw humans, not just himself but his entire species. He took a deep breath. "I do care," he said evenly. "I care very much, but humans—" "Humans," Zyrakel repeated, her voice rising. "Humans act like nothing matters until it is too late. But I see, Elias, I see the hesitation. You fear a mistake. You fear offending me. You fear the council. And yet you claim to care. You think care is the same as action." Elias could feel the weight of her gaze, not demanding but expecting. Zyrakel was not angry in the human sense. She was intense. She felt emotions fully immediately and expected the same from those around her. And humans, as he had learned long ago, were taught to pause, to think, to question, to consider consequences before action. He chose his words carefully. "Zyra, human care is not shown in the first action. We think, we wait, we reflect. We show care not by rushing but by ensuring that when we act, it is meaningful, it is thoughtful, it is—" he searched for the right word. "It is deliberate." Zyrakel's forearms relaxed slightly, though her eyes never left his. "Deliberate?" she asked, tilting her head. "Is that what this is? You deliberate while I wait?" "Yes," he said, nodding. "And I know it may seem strange, even frustrating, but it is how we honor those we care for. By waiting, we make the choice ourselves. We do not act out of impulse or obligation. We act out of understanding." There was a pause. Zyrakel seemed to study him as though measuring every word, every tone, every micro-expression. The room remained tense. Aliens from other species exchanged glances. A few whispered among themselves in their native languages, and one diplomat even began to take notes, as if this moment would one day be an example of human behavior in interstellar sociology textbooks. Zyrakel finally sighed, a sound that was more curiosity than frustration. "So you wait," she said. "You wait while I shout, while I leap, while I demand proof of your care. You wait because you choose to wait." Elias nodded again, careful not to upset the balance. "Exactly. It is a choice, and it is a human way of showing respect." We do not want to touch, to act, or to interfere until we truly understand what is needed and what is wanted. She considered this, her limbs wrapping around him less tightly now. I do not fully understand, she admitted, but perhaps I can try. I see that your hesitation is not lack of feeling, but a different kind of feeling, a kind that values intention over instinct. Elias allowed himself a small smile. Yes, that is it exactly. Intention over instinct, thought over impulse, care over obligation. The council chamber remained quiet. Even the most skeptical diplomats were listening now, recognizing that what they were witnessing was a lesson in human behavior, not an act of weakness. The humans in attendance felt a quiet pride, realizing that Elias' restraint was not indecision. It was an example of humanity's unique strength, the ability to control, to think, and to value emotional intelligence above immediate action. Zyrakel finally shifted, letting him stand fully on his own. Then, if this is your way, Elias, she said softly, you must show me why humans wait. You must prove that your inaction is not indifference but respect. Elias' heart skipped a beat. He had expected this question eventually. Every Krelith valued directness and proof, and he knew that words alone would not be enough. But he had spent his life preparing for moments like this, not with physical demonstration, but with understanding, with guidance, with care. He gestured toward the council chamber's central projection. With a flick of his hand, he brought up images of Earth, of humans waiting for crops to grow, of parents teaching children patience, of friends comforting one another with quiet presence rather than loud declarations. He spoke of human customs, of holidays built around thoughtfulness, of rituals that emphasized consideration over impulse. Zyrakel's eyes widened as she watched. She saw humans building, planning, creating communities that thrived not on domination or immediate satisfaction, but on careful, intentional effort. She could feel the difference. This was a species that did not rush, that thought before acting, that valued choice above instinct. Is this why you wait?" she asked, her voice softer now, almost reverent. "Because you choose to care more than you fear," Elias nodded. "Yes. We wait because we understand that a moment of action without thought can hurt, confuse, or mislead. We wait because we want every action to matter. Even love, even marriage, even touch. It is given meaning by choice, not by instinct." The room seemed to breathe collectively. Aliens who had doubted humans now looked on with respect. Zyrakel, for all her intensity, seemed to soften, her arms relaxing fully. "Then you are not cold, human," she said finally, her voice carrying a mixture of awe and understanding. "You are deliberate. You are thoughtful. You are capable of great care." Elias felt a wave of relief. He had not needed to leap, to shout, or to act physically. He had relied on something uniquely human, the ability to reflect, to choose, to act with purpose. And now Zyrakel understood. "Very well," she said, stepping back with a small smile. "I will try to honor your way, but be warned, Elias Ward. The Krelith do not easily forget or forgive delays. You will have to show me why your waiting is worth it." Elias smiled. "I will, I promise." And for the first time in that long day, he felt that the galaxy was watching not just a human diplomat, but a human at his best, a being capable of restraint, of patience, and of love that chose the right moment to act. The council chamber erupted into polite applause, and even Zyrakel joined in, a small, knowing smile on her face. Elias knew this was only the beginning. The real test would come later in private, when words and projections could not suffice. But for now he had shown the galaxy, and his alien wife, that humans had their own ways of touching, caring, and connecting. And in the quiet hum of the Interstellar Unity Council, Elias Ward realized that sometimes restraint was more powerful than action, and understanding more valuable than instinct. Elias had spent the evening in quiet reflection, reviewing the events of the day. The council chamber had emptied hours ago, leaving only the soft hum of the station's engines, and the distant twinkling of stars through the wide observation windows. Zyrakel was sitting across from him, her multiple limbs folded neatly, watching him with an expression that was both curious and expectant. He knew this was the moment she had been waiting for. Words and projections had shown her the human way, but understanding it fully, feeling it, would take more than lectures or images. It would take patience, demonstration, and careful thought. And Elias, being human, was exactly the right person to do it. "You've shown me much today, Elias," Zyrakel said, her voice soft now, almost reverent. "I see the human way, the patience, the intention, but I still do not fully feel it. I understand with my mind, but what of the heart?" Elias smiled. He had expected this question. It was one thing for a Krelith to comprehend human thought. It was another for them to understand human emotion. "Then let us begin," he said quietly. He rose and walked slowly toward her, not reaching out immediately. Every step was deliberate, measured, meant to show that he was not acting on impulse. Zyrakel's eyes followed him, wide and attentive, every movement recorded, analyzed, and felt. "You see, Zyra," he began, "humans do not act without thought. We consider, we reflect, we anticipate. Every gesture has meaning, and sometimes the meaning is in waiting." Her expression softened, but her limbs still tensed slightly, as though she wanted to leap forward again. Elias noticed and smiled. "You may think waiting is hesitation or fear, but it is not. It is care, it is respect, and it is trust. I trust you enough to choose my actions carefully, rather than act on impulse." Zyrakel tilted her head, as she had that day in the council chamber. "Trust, meaning you believe I will understand, even if I do not see immediately." "Yes," he said. "Trust means I believe you are capable of patience, that you can feel intention without needing the first gesture. And it also means that when I do act, it will have meaning because it is chosen, not demanded." The Krelith's eyes flickered, as though a new understanding was dawning. Elias could feel the tension in the room slowly shift. Where there had been impatience and curiosity, there was now a quiet anticipation, a delicate balance of expectation and openness. He stopped a few steps away from her, lowering himself to sit at her level. "Zyra, I am not asking you to wait. I am asking you to see. To see why humans act when we do, and why we refrain when we choose. The meaning is in the thought, in the care, in the decision itself." Her multiple arms slowly relaxed, resting gently at her sides. She leaned slightly forward, as though willing herself to absorb every word, every nuance. "And this is why you waited in the council chamber, why you did not act when I demanded it." "Yes," Elias said, "because acting without thought would have been meaningless. It would have satisfied the moment but not shown care, not shown intention, not shown understanding. My restraint was not indifference, it was choice." For a moment, Zyrakel said nothing. She simply watched him, processing his words, feeling the difference in the rhythm of his voice, in the patience of his gaze. Slowly, she extended a limb, touching his arm lightly, not a leap, not a demand, but a gentle connection. Elias felt a warmth spread through him. This simple touch was more powerful than any impulsive action could have been. It was acknowledgement, acceptance, and trust all in one. He returned the gesture with equal care, allowing her to feel the intent behind it. "You are different," Zyrakel whispered. "Humans, your patience, your thought, it is surprising. I see now that waiting is not weakness, it is strength. And it is respect." Elias nodded. "Exactly. And this respect is not limited to intimacy. It applies to all things humans do. We pause before we act because we value understanding, we value choice, and we value the well-being of those we care for." Zyrakel studied him, her large eyes reflecting the soft light of the observation window. "Then I see the human way, and I will honor it. I will allow you to choose, and I will trust your choice." Elias smiled. He had expected some resistance, some doubt, but her acceptance was immediate, full, and sincere. It was a rare gift, not just in the Krelith culture, but in any culture he had ever encountered. Humans had learned the value of patience over millennia, and now one Krelith had recognized it, not just with her mind, but with her heart. "Very well," she said softly. "Then show me. Show me the meaning of human choice, Elia's ward. Show me why waiting is worth it." He stood slowly, deliberately, and extended his hand to her. "Then take it, Zyra, but only when you are ready, only when you feel the meaning of it, and only when you choose to accept it." Her eyes brightened, and she reached for his hand, intertwining it with hers. The gesture was simple, but it was profound. Elias felt the weight of meaning in the touch, the understanding that this was not obligation, not instinct, not demand. It was choice, recognition, and trust. The soft lights of the observation deck glimmered around them, reflecting off their joined hands, as though the stars themselves were acknowledging the moment. Outside, the galaxy stretched in endless possibilities, yet within this small space, time seemed to pause. Elias and Zyrakel had found a bridge between instinct and thought, between emotion and reflection, between species. "You see now, Zyra," he asked quietly. "This is why humans wait, because the first action without thought has little value. But the action chosen when the time is right, when intention is clear, it is powerful, it is meaningful, and it is remembered." She nodded, a gentle smile curving her features. "I see now, Elias, and I understand. I will wait and I will choose because now I know what it means. And when I choose, it will have meaning, just as your waiting had meaning." Elias felt a wave of relief and joy. The moment had arrived not in drama but in understanding. The Krelith had witnessed the human way, and more importantly, Zyrakel had felt it. The galaxy might continue to misinterpret human patience, but here, in this room, one alien had understood. They spent the next hours quietly talking, sharing experiences, and explaining customs from their respective cultures. Elias told Zyrakel about human celebrations of patience and reflection. She shared stories of Krelith impulsiveness, of their love of action and immediate response. Together, they laughed at the contrasts, marveled at the differences, and discovered common ground in the value of trust and understanding. By the time the observation deck lights dimmed, a gentle quiet had settled over them. Zyrakel leaned against Elias, her multiple arms draped around him not in urgency, but in comfort. Elias wrapped an arm around her in return, feeling the warmth of mutual respect, trust, and newly formed understanding. In that quiet space, Elias realized something profound. Humans were indeed different from other species. They did not act out of instinct alone. They did not rush, did not seize, and did not demand. Instead, they thought, they reflected, they waited, and in that waiting they found strength, intention, and meaning. And for the first time, Zyrakel experienced this difference not as a curiosity, but as a gift. She had leapt, she had shouted, she had demanded, but now she understood. Elia's restraint had not been a refusal, it had been a declaration of care, of trust, and of respect. The galaxy might continue to misunderstand humans as it often did, but for now, here and now, understanding had been achieved. Zyrakel had felt the meaning of human patience, and Elias had shown the power of deliberate choice. In the quiet of the observation deck, with the stars as witnesses, a bridge had formed between two species. And Elias Ward, human diplomat, human thinker, human lover, knew that sometimes the greatest strength was not in action, but in waiting. The next day, Elias and Zyrakel found themselves walking through the corridors of the Unity Station, a place where representatives from dozens of species lived and worked together. Despite its size and complexity, the station always felt smaller when they walked together. Perhaps it was because humans and Krelith, though so different, were beginning to understand one another in ways that words alone could not describe. Zyrakel moved gracefully beside him, her multiple limbs flowing in perfect rhythm. Unlike the previous day, she did not leap or shout. Instead, she observed, curious but patient. Elias noticed her attentiveness, and a quiet satisfaction warmed him. The lesson from the council chamber had been received, and now it was time for deeper understanding. "You know, Elias," Zyrakel began, her voice thoughtful, "humans are strange. You wait, you reflect, you deliberate. And yet when you act, it is powerful, it is precise. I feel it now, not just with my mind, but with my heart." Elias smiled. "That is the point, Zyra. Human action is meaningful because we consider it. Our waiting is not weakness, but preparation. Our patience ensures that what we give, what we do, has purpose and intention." Zyrakel tilted her head. "Then patience is your strength." "Yes," Elias said, "and understanding, empathy, and care. These are human strengths as well. We are not the strongest physically, not the fastest, not the most aggressive, but we think, we reflect, and we act when it matters most." They walked in silence for a moment, passing alien representatives who watched them curiously. Some had already heard stories of the council chamber incident. A few whispered to one another, impressed by the humans' restraint. Elias had become, unintentionally, a living lesson in the galaxy. Humans were patient, deliberate, and surprisingly strong in ways that others did not immediately understand. Zyrakel finally spoke again. "I want to see more. Not just the waiting, not just the talking. I want to feel why humans wait. I want to experience your way fully." Elias stopped and faced her. "Then you shall. But understand this, it is not a single moment or a single action. It is a way of life, a way of seeing, feeling, and choosing." Her eyes brightened. "I am ready." He took her to the station's observation deck, where a holographic display projected the scenes of Earth. They saw forests growing, rivers flowing, cities rising from careful planning, people working together, solving problems, celebrating small victories, and comforting each other in times of trouble. "Humans do not act because we must," Elias explained. "We act because we understand. We wait because we care. And we act deliberately so that our actions have meaning beyond the moment." Zyrakel's eyes followed every projection, every movement. She reached out occasionally, touching the holograms with curiosity, almost as if trying to feel the thought and care behind every human action. "So your waiting, your patience, it is not emptiness. It is preparation. It is thought made real." "Yes," Elias said softly. "And it is a promise that when we act it will matter." They spent hours observing, discussing, and learning. Zyrakel began to understand more deeply, not just the concept of waiting, but the philosophy behind it. Humans valued the moment, not merely for what it achieved, but for the intention behind it. Every choice carried weight, every decision carried care, and every action was an expression of thought and respect. Later, Elias took her to a quiet garden within the station. The garden was small but lush, filled with plants from many worlds, carefully tended by representatives who shared their knowledge. Elias guided Zyrakel to a bench and sat beside her. "Here," he said, "you can feel it. You can see that growth, care, and patience are not just human. They are universal, but humans choose to notice them, to act upon them deliberately, to nurture them with thought." Zyrakel's eyes softened. "I feel it, Elias. I feel the meaning. I see why your waiting is not empty. I see why humans are strong not through force but through choice." He took her hands gently, holding them with care. "And now you can feel it in us, in our connection, in our choice to act when the time is right." She smiled, a mixture of awe and warmth. "Then I will wait with you, not because I must, but because I choose to understand, to feel, to connect." Elias nodded. "That is the human way, and it is why we are strong. Not in speed or strength alone, but in care, intention, and understanding." They sat together, enjoying the quiet of the garden. Stars glimmered through the station's windows, distant yet constant. The galaxy stretched infinitely, yet within this small space, understanding had been achieved. Elias realized that the patience he had learned over decades, the careful thought that had guided him through countless negotiations, was not just a human trait, it was a gift, one that could bridge worlds and hearts alike. As the day turned to evening, Zyrakel spoke softly. Elias, I have learned much. I have seen your patience, your care, and your thought, and I have felt it. You have shown me that waiting is not weakness but strength. That reflection is not hesitation but understanding. That choice is more powerful than instinct. Elias smiled, squeezing her hands gently. And you, Zyra, have shown me that openness, curiosity, and trust are universal, that even across species, connection is possible when hearts and minds are willing. Zyrakel leaned closer, resting her head against his shoulder. Then let us continue this way, together, with patience, with thought, with care. And when the moment comes, we will act not out of demand, not out of impulse, but out of choice. Yes, Elias whispered. Together we will choose. The stars outside seemed to shimmer a little brighter, as if acknowledging the union of understanding between two very different beings. The galaxy might never fully grasp the human way, but for Zyrakel, it no longer mattered. She had experienced it, felt it, and chosen to accept it. Over the next days, they continued their exploration of Unity Station, meeting representatives from other species and observing their customs. Zyrakel's approach had changed. Where she once acted immediately, she now paused, reflecting, asking questions, and considering the impact of her actions. Other species noticed and remarked upon the difference, curious at how one Krelith had begun to understand human patience. Elias watched with quiet satisfaction. It was a small step, but an important one. If one Krelith could learn the human way, perhaps others could too. Patience, thoughtfulness, and care could spread across the stars, not as rules or commands, but as living examples. One evening they returned to the observation deck, overlooking the expanse of the galaxy. Zyrakel turned to Elias. Do you think other species will ever understand humans? She asked, her voice reflective. Elias considered this, watching the stars. Perhaps some will. Perhaps some will never fully understand. But that is not the point. The point is that we act with intention and that we show care when it matters. If others see that, even in small ways, it can inspire them. Understanding begins with example, not demand. Zyrakel nodded, her expression thoughtful. Then we must continue, together, as examples, as humans and Krelith, showing the galaxy what patience, care, and choice mean. Elias reached out, taking her hands again. Yes, and in doing so we show that connection is possible. That understanding can cross species, cultures, and even worlds, and that even in a vast, complex galaxy, hearts can meet when minds and intentions align. They stood together in silence, watching the stars, feeling the weight and wonder of the galaxy. The journey of understanding, of connection, of patience and choice was far from over. But Elias knew one thing. As long as they chose thoughtfully, acted with care, and waited with intention, nothing could break the bond they had formed. And in that quiet, infinite expanse, two beings, human and Krelith, stood together, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as examples of what the galaxy could achieve when patience, thought, and understanding guided every action. Zyrakel finally smiled, a soft, radiant smile that spoke of trust, respect, and choice. Elias, she said, I am ready. Whatever comes, I choose to face it with you, and I will wait when needed because I understand now that waiting is not weakness, it is strength. Elias returned her smile, a warmth spreading through him. Then let us continue, Zyra, together, acting when the moment matters and waiting when it is right. And in this, we will show the galaxy the human way. The stars beyond the observation deck sparkled, countless and unending, as if echoing their shared understanding. And for Elias and Zyrakel, the galaxy was no longer a place of confusion or impatience. It was a place of connection, learning, and deliberate choice. A place where hearts, minds, and intentions could meet, across species, across worlds, across the infinite expanse of space. In that moment, Elias understood something deeper than any negotiation or counsel could teach. True strength was not in speed, not in power, not in action alone, but in patience, intention, and the careful, deliberate choice to care. And together, he and Zyrakel would continue to demonstrate that strength, one choice at a time. Days passed on the Unity station, yet Elias felt that time had slowed when he was with Zyrakel. The lessons of patience, understanding, and deliberate choice were no longer abstract. They were alive in every moment they spent together. The alien corridors, once a maze of unfamiliar sights and sounds, now felt more like a shared home, a place where two very different beings could learn and grow together. Zyrakel had changed in small but noticeable ways. She moved with intention, pausing before acting, considering words before speaking, and often observing the humans and aliens around them to notice how they interacted. Elias could see her internal shift, the subtle understanding that thoughtfulness carried its own power. It was both fascinating and gratifying to watch. One morning, as the artificial sun rose over the station, Elias invited Zyrakel to join him on a guided tour of the station's laboratories. "Today," he said, "I want to show you how humans think even in the most complex situations. Not through force, not through speed, but through patience, planning, and cooperation." She tilted her head, intrigued. "I am ready. Show me, Elias." The first lab they visited was one focused on energy research. Humans and aliens worked side by side, carefully calibrating experiments that would power parts of the station. Instruments clicked, lights blinked, and soft hums filled the room. Elias pointed out how the researchers waited for precise measurements before making any adjustments, how every action was deliberate, tested, and double-checked. Zyrakel watched intently. "Your patience, it is everywhere," she said softly. "Even in work, not just in interactions." Elias nodded. "Patience is human. We know that one wrong action can create bigger problems. We think before we act because we understand the consequences. Waiting is not hesitation, it is wisdom in action." They moved on to a communications lab, where humans coordinated with several distant colonies. Elias explained how messages were carefully reviewed, how decisions were made collectively, and how thoughtfulness ensured the safety and efficiency of the network. Zyrakel observed the quiet respect with which humans listened to each other, how disagreement did not lead to anger but to careful negotiation and compromise. "This is remarkable," she said. "Your species has learned to work together not through dominance but through understanding. Even in disagreement there is respect." "Yes," Elias said, "respect and patience are the foundations of human cooperation. We do not act out of impulse. We do not rush. We wait until the best solution is found, and then we act with intention." As the day progressed, they visited laboratories, workshops, and greenhouses, each showing the same principle. Humans valued thought over speed, cooperation over individual pride, and care over impulse. Zyrakel's admiration grew with every step. She began to see how patience, thoughtfulness, and deliberate action were not just cultural traits, they were survival tools, tools that made humans strong in ways her species had not considered. Later, they arrived at a large observatory overlooking a nearby planetary system. Elias guided Zyrakel to a viewing platform, where holographic projections displayed detailed models of planetary orbits, atmospheric conditions, and ecological systems. "Here," Elias said, "humans wait even in understanding the universe. We study, we observe, we record patterns, and only when we understand do we act. We have learned that rushing into decisions, especially about worlds or lives, can create irreversible consequences. Patience is not only wise, it is essential." Zyrakel's eyes glimmered. "Your waiting is not just choice, it is responsibility. You feel the weight of every action before it happens." "Yes," Elias said quietly, "and this is why I waited with you, Zyra. Not because I feared consequences, but because I valued you. I wanted every moment, every gesture, every choice between us to have meaning." For the first time, Zyrakel smiled openly, her multiple limbs relaxed and draped gently around her. Then I understand fully. Waiting is your way of caring, thoughtfulness is your way of loving, and choice is your way of showing strength. Elias took her hand, their fingers interlacing naturally. Exactly. And now, I want you to see how this strength can extend beyond personal connection, how humans influence the galaxy through patience and understanding. He guided her through the station's diplomatic wing, where humans were in negotiation with representatives from other species. Zyrakel observed humans listening intently, asking questions, clarifying intentions, and making decisions only after thorough discussion. Even when tension arose, humans remained calm, choosing words carefully, waiting for the right moment to act. "This is astonishing," Zyrakel whispered. "You do not dominate, you do not intimidate, you influence, guide, and build through thought." "Yes," Elias said, "our strength is subtle but powerful. We do not need to force others. We choose action when it matters most, and our careful approach earns trust and cooperation across species." The Krelith's multiple eyes followed the discussions, noting the small gestures of patience, the deliberate pauses, and the careful consideration that humans gave to every statement. "I see now," she said. "Even in politics, waiting is not weakness. It is strategy. It is wisdom. It is power without aggression." Elias smiled, glad that she was seeing the human way unfold across every aspect of life. "You are beginning to understand. This is why humans are admired in some parts of the galaxy, misunderstood in others, but always respected. Thoughtfulness and care may seem slow to some, but they create outcomes far stronger than impulsive action." As the day turned into evening, Elias led Zyrakel to a quiet terrace overlooking the station's artificial sky. Soft stars twinkled above and gentle lights illuminated the garden below. He gestured toward the view. "See this?" he asked. "All these stars, all these systems, they exist in perfect balance. Every planet, every orbit, every ecosystem, everything depends on timing, patience, and careful observation. Humans are like this. We move deliberately, we act when necessary, and we shape the world with thought rather than force." Zyrakel looked out over the stars, her multiple limbs folded peacefully. "Then your waiting, your patience, it is universal, not just personal. It is harmony with the universe itself." "Yes," Elias said softly. "And when we apply it to life, love, and relationships, it becomes a powerful tool. Patience allows us to build trust, understanding, and connection." Zyrakel turned to him, her large eyes filled with warmth. "Then I will wait with you, Elias. I will act with intention. I will choose when the time is right, because I understand that what is chosen is stronger than what is forced." Elias took her hands gently. "And I will act with care every time. We will move together patiently, thoughtfully, deliberately. And in this, we will show the galaxy what it means to be human, and what it means to understand each other across species." They stood together, hands entwined, feeling the weight and beauty of the galaxy around them. In that quiet moment, Elias realized that the lessons of patience, care, and deliberate choice had extended far beyond himself and Zyrakel. They were an example of the human way, a living demonstration that patience could build bridges, understanding could unite worlds, and careful choice could create powerful connections. Zyrakel leaned her head against Elia's shoulder, her multiple limbs resting peacefully. "Elias," she whispered, "thank you for teaching me. Thank you for showing me that patience is not weakness, that waiting is not emptiness. I understand now and I will honor it. I will choose with thought, with care, with intention." Elias smiled, feeling a warmth that went beyond words. "And I will honor you, Zyra. Together, we will show that strength is not in speed, not in dominance, but in understanding, patience, and choice. Together, we will move through the galaxy, teaching through example rather than force, showing that care and thoughtfulness are the most powerful tools of all." As the artificial sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the terrace, they stood in quiet harmony. The stars twinkled above, the gardens below glowed softly, and the hum of the station surrounded them. Two beings from different worlds had learned to understand one another fully, not through immediate action or instinct, but through patience, choice, and care. And Elias Ward, human diplomat, thinker, and teacher, knew this truth deeply. The greatest strength in the universe was not power or speed, but patience, understanding, and deliberate action. And together with Zyrakel, he would continue to demonstrate this strength, one thoughtful choice at a time. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but Elias and Zyrakel knew they were ready. Not because they acted quickly, not because they demanded obedience, but because they understood, they waited, and they chose. And in that, they found power, connection, and an unshakable bond that could endure across any star, any planet, and any obstacle the universe might present. In the quiet glow of the observation deck, they held each other, not with urgency but with intention. And for the first time, Elias felt that patience, thoughtfulness, and care were not just human traits. They were gifts, capable of shaping not only hearts but entire worlds. And as the stars stretched endlessly before them, Elias and Zyrakel understood fully. The universe could move fast, worlds could collide, and civilizations could rise and fall. But the deliberate choice to care, to wait, and to act with intention would always remain the most powerful force of all.